What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm bringing you guys my build guide and review for Estela. She's the new released character just a couple days ago, and I managed to luckily get her in 20 pulls. I have the stream highlight and my first time using her. I'll put it in a card up in the upper right if you want to see that, but you're here for me going over her abilities, going over what artifacts I'd recommend on her, what her talents do, that kind of thing. Most of you who watch don't subscribe, so if you enjoy the content, do that. No need to use the bell or anything like that. It's alright if you don't get notifications and just get recommended. Just being subscribed and interacting with the video is enough. Getting immediately into her abilities, I'm actually going to start with linked companions because I had kind of understated how important this would be to have in previous guides, so I'm going to make sure I go over those first each time. So first of all, you have her passive boost, which is a stationary boost. She deals 7.5% extra solar damage as long as she's standing still. This includes shooting and using her abilities in place, meaning that you are going to want to take advantage of this, which I will explain when I go over her gameplay loop. In addition to that, the two best ones I would say are the solar ability boost to increase damage by 4.5% at our current level on servers, and a debuff extension, which is going to be based on how many pieces of Umeko you have. I have one, so it's 8%. If you don't have her, I would recommend just grabbing Finala, Zhonwei, or Jolder just to increase your survivability a little bit. But if you do have Umeko, hers is best because it increases the duration of Corrupt and Misfortune, which are cornerstones of this build setup and what I'm expecting you to use for your damage phases. Getting immediately into her relic abilities, her passive is Corruption. Attacking combatants with weapons accumulates Corruption. Up to 10 times per second, this fits in with her rapid fire weapons. And casting Bewitched Illusion consumes Corruption. That's her primary summoning ability. This ability cannot be cast without sufficient energy. Getting into Bewitched Illusion, it only has a 1-second cooldown, but that's because the real cooldown is storing up your Corruption. You want to use this while you have level 3 or level 2 corruption. Level 1 is fine to just get them out there as fast as you can, but by my understanding after repeatedly playing, it seems like the best quality you get is from having 1 to 2 level 2s and 1 to 2 level 3s, depending on how the cooldowns and all of them are looking. What Bewitched Illusion does is it summons a Bewitched Illusion at the reticle position for up to 25 seconds. Reaching these various levels of corruption will summon a different level Bewitched Illusion, and the higher level they are, the faster they attack, and the more breaths of temptations they use each attack. This increases their damage dramatically. In addition to that, each hit default restores health for you once per second per illusion, so even more important to have 3 of them up because that's 3 different sources of healing for you all at once. In addition to that, level 3 illusions will gain the intrusion ability, which fires a powerful breath of temptation that over-penetrates combatants, dealing solar damage to all combatants with a cooldown of 10 seconds. Bewitched Illusions will also go around and kind of seek out targets, though they can be a little stupid, so that's going to make our other signature very, very useful. They can be attacked and defeated, but as far as I can tell, using them in Expanse, Raids, and the highest level of the Legendary campaign, like a level 83 one, they don't really get attacked enough, or at least you're summoning them too frequently to where they don't really get destroyed all that much. They also refund you some corruption based on whatever level they are when they disappear. For the other signature, we have Misfortune's Guide. This one is going to be where most of our big damage comes from. You gather contaminated energy, and you fire it up to 60 meters away. When that energy hits a target, you hit them with 2 debuffs, Corrupt and Misfortune. The first, Misfortune, is a unique debuff to Estela. It makes it so all of your summons deal an extra 35% damage, ignore the slight typos, and then whenever Misfortune is inflicted, it also grants you Corruption. As long as they are inflicted with Misfortune, they will also be inflicted with Corrupt. So that means anything you do that increases how long Misfortune lasts will increase how long the Corrupt lasts, and Corrupt is a general debuff that exists, as far as I'm aware, on all current solar characters that causes enemies to take extra damage and be unable to heal. Her super is Violent Reverie. She summons a big ol' dragon that comes out of the ground for 14 seconds. It will knock back anything that is close to where you summon it, and it deals a good amount of damage. It then automatically attacks the nearest combatant with a 70-meter range. This is huge, by the way. Oh, another thing to note real quick about Misfortune's Guide, your summons will target whatever's hit by this. They'll either blink directly to it and then start attacking it, or they will have it as a higher priority, by my understanding. Back to Reverie. So Reverie automatically attacks the nearest combatant, dealing continuous damage. The beam's damage is absolutely insane. When you properly stack everything up here, you will probably see it in the gameplay at some point, but you can almost one-phase Azakis with 3 Estelas. I imagine if we were more optimized, we 100% could have one-phased Azakis very, very easily. This was a match-made game. Violent Reverie can't move, and it can be attacked, but it has almost twice as much health as the other summons, and is out for less time, meaning that, to be honest, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that being destroyed either. Now, for the relic traits, first is Calamitous Pandemic. Combatants that are affected by misfortune will spread misfortune to the nearest combatant within a 10-meter radius whenever they're defeated, dealing extra damage. However, the duration is reduced by 2 seconds with each spread. This is extremely useful. Even though it can only spread up to 5 times, it still gives you a really good way to just chain around your kills and your damage from your summons. The second relic trait is Dream Aid. While Violent Reverie is present, all combatants' misfortune countdowns will be paused, and corruption will be accumulated with 80% more efficiency. Now, not only is the corruption accumulation great, because this is what really lets us have the uptime on those level 3s, but also, because the misfortune countdown is paused, that also pauses the countdown on corrupt, which prevents them from healing and increases their damage taken, because that's a debuff. And so both of those things, not only does it last the full 14 seconds that Violent Reverie is around, it then lasts for a further 8 seconds, assuming the boss is still alive at that point and the boss damage is still going. And then those 8 seconds are potentially increased by another however many pieces of a second, or if you have higher talents for Umeko, it could be even complete 1 to 2 seconds of increased duration. And then during that whole first 14 seconds while Reverie is active, you're gaining more corruption. For the third relic trait, we have Focused Fire. When Misfortune's Guide is cast, Bewitched Illusion's Blink will fire 3 breaths of temptation at the target simultaneously. This is just a great piece of extra damage. For the weapon mastery, this is mostly going to actually be for your abilities. Anytime you attack a combatant affected by misfortune with a weapon 11 times, it triggers an accident, which deals solar damage to the combatant and grants additional corruption. If a combatant is defeated with misfortune, Estela will gain additional corruption equal to 7 times the number of accidents that have affected the target. So basically, the bigger the target, the more corruption you get from defeating them. This increases in damage until level 4, when every time an accident is triggered, the number of attacks required to trigger the next accident is reduced by 1 for a minimum of 7 attacks. And then it doubles in damage when you hit level 5. This is extremely nice damage, not gonna lie. So for my general suggested gameplay loop here, in standard content, you're going to want to summon a little critter, hit a target with Misfortune's Guide. This applies Misfortune, so your summons do more damage and teleport to them. It also applies the Corrupt debuff that stops healing and increases your own damage against the target. Then shoot them with your Pulse Rifle to generate corruption. During damage, you want to stand still as much as possible in order to take advantage of her passive Light Linked effect, and then try to maintain 3 summons on the field at one time at the highest level you can afford, basically. Usually it'll be 1 or 2 level 3 summons and 1 or 2 level 2 summons, assuming you're consistently dealing damage to enemies. Then when you're trying to do burst damage for something like Azakis, like a standard boss encounter, you're going to summon a level 3, use your super immediately, then hit the target with Misfortune's Guide, which applies Misfortune and Corrupt, and then the entire time your super is active, Misfortune's countdown will be paused, and then you just unload with your LMG. Ideally an exotic one, which we'll go over with the weapons, but the weapons don't matter as much on this character, so don't worry too much about it. But this generates a lot more corruption because of the fire rate, and you deal more damage. During damage, stand as still as possible to take advantage of the Light Linked effect. Getting into her talents a little bit here. When Estela or her summons attack targets afflicted with misfortune, they recover health equal to the initial damage dealt, 40% or 1200% respectively. So this is just a nice way to heal ourselves of extra damage. Overflowing Calamity. When a Bewitched Illusion expires or is replaced, it gains the Sacrifice ability, charging at the nearest combatant and exploding. This explosion has a 6-meter radius and deals damage based on the illusion's level. Manifested Support. Increase the max duration to 42 seconds for all of your illusions. Deepen Misfortune. The additional damage Estela summons deal to combatants afflicted with misfortune is increased to 50%. Soul Soothing. Her summons now deal just a flat 20% extra damage. And Corrupting Influence. She recovers 2 corruption per second while in combat and 4 per second while out of combat. The base corruption granted by triggering accident is increased to 10. These are very, very nice effects, and it's 100% something that's going to matter a lot when you're outside of like the highest end activity. It won't work at all during like contest mode raids or anything that is like PvP competitive, but it will work really well for just your day-to-day playing, and they are quite powerful. Now, for the segment that many of you have likely been waiting for, we have the artifacts, of which I'm going to recommend for the first slot, one of 3. There is Unrelenting Ground, which makes you take less damage while you are stationary. This is nice for those high damage moments in which you are wanting to just be completely still and not take as much damage. Though there are a lot of encounters in this game that do encourage you to move, so I personally don't prefer this one. I also have pretty garbage stats on the few rules of it I do have, so one that I genuinely prefer is Warding Pact, which for each summon on the field, you gain 1 stack of ward, up to 3 total stacks, which each stack gives you, at this level at least, 9% reduced damage, so you can have almost the same damage reduction as Unrelenting Ground, but almost constantly because of how high your uptime is on your summons. Another pretty good option could be Nourishing Pact, because it restores 12% of your health. This one is still a little bit more situational because you're not going to be summoning super frequently because of that really high uptime. For the second option, I'm going to be personally using an exotic ruled Ring of Conversion. This one basically takes overflow healing from your own abilities specifically. So this would not apply to overflow healing from something like Nourishing Pact. It would more facilitate Nourishing Pact healing you to full and then keeping you at full for longer, so that your actual abilities would theoretically overflow more often in order to convert them to overshield. But this also works really nicely just in general play too, because Estela still gets healed every time one of her summons attacks an enemy. And with her talents, she will get healed even more from herself or summons attacking an enemy. So definitely highly recommend Ring of Conversion here. If you really don't like this one, then you could also take something like Healing Mutation, which consecutively hitting the same target with more than 5 rounds has you recover health. But the problem is this health is based on the amount of damage you're dealing. And let's be real here, we're not picking Estela because she has great weapon damage. For the third artifact, I would highly recommend taking Bellicose Pact. This just gives your summons a flat 30% damage buff at this level at least, and that is extremely, extremely nice to have, especially on this character who deals so much damage with her summons already. I don't think there's another option here. I think this is just flat out the best one. This is the easiest thing to just tell you, get this, put it in this slot, that's it. Then for the final slot, which I think is the most of a toss-up because I'm between 2 pieces that both have very, very good damage and both of them are very, very nice. I literally just had my choice made easier by only getting an exotic for one of them to drop, which is Resonating Pact. When summons attack the same target as the wielder, they deal 37.6% damage at this enhancement and at this perk level. This is a very significant damage bonus, and then the only other option for it is Responsive Pact. Casting signature abilities grants summons a similar, when they're at the same level, attack damage bonus for 6 seconds. The only real downside here is it's 6 seconds long, whereas your summons last a lot longer than 6 seconds. In addition to that, even if you split your Misfortune and all of this stuff with it, you're going to have downtime on this ability. Whereas Resonating Pact, ideally, you shouldn't have any downtime on as long as you are shooting the same target as your summons. Now, for general substats, I'm going to recommend things like Super Boost, Healing Bonus, Shield Boost, Solar Boost, Ability Strength is absolutely amazing on her, Signature Boost is really good, basically any mix of those. I have really high weapon enhancement through sheer luck, but realistically, she doesn't benefit a whole lot from it. Most of her damage isn't going to be weapon based, so don't worry too much about it, even though the game recommends it to you. I'm going to get into her weapons. Something to keep in mind, as a general rule of thumb, you kind of, for her, just want to throw on whatever's going to bring you the most power. The damage they give you will be pretty minimal, excluding the exotics, of which I have heard that Furies 3 is extremely nice for her, and then I have personally had amazing success with Gallows. Gallows has a slow rate of fire, but makes up for it because of its exotic effect, firing homing void grenades, which do apply weapon hits. I don't have a catalyst for it, but the catalyst does trigger the void grenades faster, which will increase your corruption from getting hits with the weapon, which I imagine is really, really nice. I personally went with the Del 2 Sweet Ears because I rolled 2 mythic perks on it. That's literally the only reason. I think Ensured Yield is really good, but I would personally take something like Annihilation just because Solidarity is very teammate reliant and also takes some time to ramp up, and then Voodoo Doll just doesn't look very good in my opinion. If you instead are stuck with an Ultimatum, which I do think is slightly better, I would run something like Fraternity, because it deals more damage when all of your fire team members are alive. It's just a nice flat increase. And then Clepsydra, which grants increased damage based on the ratio of hits to precision hits made with the current magazine, up to 75%. And this resets when the magazine is emptied. It's very, very nice. So if you want the highest damage setup, try to get those perks. But realistically, you don't really want to be farming perks on her anyway. You want your 2 mythics on one, your exotic weapon on the other slot. If you enjoyed this video, do all the things you do to support it, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, I have an advanced GG link in the description for energy drinks is what I use it for, but they also have plenty of other supplements there, so check that out with my code, STIXHERE10, 10% off. And thank you guys for watching very much. Have a good day, and peace.